Hey,
Looks
Craig.
like someone's not getting pretzels tonight.
Damn it. You ruined my intro.
I know.
I was going to go, hey, Craig, it's Super Bowl. The Super Bowl's happening. Hey, Craig, it's Super Bowl.
You can't say that. We can't use that term. It's not ours to use.
What?
That's why we use the Superb Owl.
Oh,
Yeah.
the Superb
Or the Superb
Owl.
Owlbear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Later in this episode.
Yeah. Somebody found stats on this thing, apparently.
Somebody created stats on this thing.
Yep. So I think... Oh, yeah, I guess we need to do our actual intro. Hey, we're the Grumpy Dungeon Masters. I'm Jay. I'm joined by Christopher and Dan and Christian. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Bye.
All right. Intro over again. Hey, I'm getting better at these.
Yeah.
I'm making them quick, getting out of the way. That way we can talk about the real stuff that everyone actually cares about. For
the new Monster Manual?
No, the Unearthed Arcana that we didn't finish last week.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys stepping in and taking care of the Purple Dragon Knight system in my absence. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we know you
had a bit of a family emergency, so yeah.
Yep, we understand. But we know you had a lot to say about it, and I know for sure that me and Christian felt exactly the same way, so we let him have it.
I was indifferent.
That's because you didn't play second edition.
Yep.
So this week, I guess we'll pick up with the rogue subclass, the Scion of the Three.
Yeah.
I have not read anything about this. So,
off to a great start, it seems.
So this is your Baldur's Gate rogue. That's where this comes from. They draw their power from the Dead Three, Bane, Ball, and Merkel.
Mm-hmm.
So start off with a level 3 ability called Bloodthirst. If you sneak attack a bloodied creature, it takes extra damage equal to half your rogue level.
Yeah, they're bringing back 4th edition. That's what's fucking happening here.
In addition, when an enemy you can see is reduced to 0 hit points, you can use your reaction to teleport to an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet of yourself, and then make 1 melee attack. So you are just Jason Voorheesing here. When you kill somebody, you just appear next to your next victim and continue the machete assault.
Did they push through the changes that they couldn't sneak attack on other turns, or was it just your turn?
I don't remember.
No, you can still get a reaction sneak attack.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they rolled that back.
Okay. Yeah, I honestly never checked because I don't play rogues, because rogues suck.
I fully disagree, and I'll step in here just in defense of that. Rogues are your jack of all trades. That they're your skill monkeys. If you don't have, the ranger filling in for tracking and things in stealth and scouting and things like that. They're the guy that can do everything you need to do without magic. But the reaction, the ability to get multiple sneak attacks in a given round, I didn't really get to until I think level 8 in the game I've been playing for the last 4 or 5 years. I've been playing Rogue since level 1, level 13, or level 12 now. And I will say that picking up Sentinel and Mage Slayer has saved my ass and saved the party's ass so many times. Like, oh, there's a mage that's about to cast a spell, and I can see that he's clearly a mage. I get up next to him. He's gonna cast a spell? Yeah, reaction. I fucking attack you. Oh, there was a we fought an aboleth last session. There's a polearm fighter or a great weapon fighter in the fight with me. He's on the other side of the aboleth. Paladin's next to me, and we're fighting it. The aboleth decides to attack the paladin first. Both of us get sentinel reaction attacks at the same time, just fucking skewer it. Like
that's because Sentinel is busted and always.
Yeah, not because the rogue is good.
Not a rogue thing. That's a Sentinel issue.
Yeah, but the ability to make those things fairly frequently happen on off-turn sneak attacks makes rogues at higher level viable when everybody else is, casting level 6 and 7th level spells. You're still just, I can throw basically a fireball once a round if I hit. That's cool and all, but being able to do it twice a round, even if it's not every single round, is pretty significant. Whenever you come to this UA for the Scion of the Dead 3, which, I'm never going to allow it in my game because I don't really run evil games, but it's a fucking sick-ass subclass. Because
you're not required to be evil to play this anymore.
Neat. If you're worshipping the Dead 3, yeah, you are.
It's not necessarily a
I'm just
worshiper
saying.
of the Dead 3. I guess they say, well, yeah. No, they say some rogues pledge themselves ardently to those 3, and others find it thrust upon them by a curse. So it could be like the Baldur's Gate games, where you just are some dude and you happen to find out that you are one of these things. Like, you didn't know, you didn't choose to be it. You just were like, oh, cool. I have the spirit of like a shard of some like dead murder god in me. Awesome.
But that's not true at all, though. Because level 3 ability is Dread Allegiance. Choose one of the Dead 3, Bane, Ball, or Merkle. You gain resistance to one type of damage and ability to cast a cantrip as detailed in the table below. Intelligence or spellcasting. When you finish a long rest, you change your choice.
Yeah. You're just channeling their power still. It's like a warlock. Like, you may be, like, you're still trying to use dark magic in a good way. But
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Look,
see, I don't like that ability because this goes back to one of my things where there's just too much magic in D&D. As like, you're taking one of the 2, or 3 non-magical classes, and instead of just figuring out something cool to give them, you're like, well, we'll just give them magic.
yeah, here's you a spell. Enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's.
They could have just given it the damage resistance, and that would have been fine.
You could give them damage resistance and then some neat ability that that triggers off which one of the 3 you pick. Maybe you can change the damage type of your sneak attack based off the type you pick. That would have been fine, but the fact that you have to give everything magic just irritates me. I find it to be, I don't know, lazy design.
Go back to second edition where fighters were just fighters.
So Christian, I'm with you. I hate that everything is magic, but in the past 4 years, it's been very recent change in my mind. I've gotten less irritated by that, mostly because it's just. I think it stems a lot from from the LARP, where I want to play a character a certain way, and the LARP that I play has a very strict code of it, and everything is all magic based. And I've kind of reached this point where it's like I never wanted to touch magic or do anything with magic, but if I don't, I'm losing a big part of the game because that's what the game is. And D&D is a lot like everything has magic. Everyone has magic spells. Everything has magic spells in some way, shape, or form. That's just the society that they grew into. And then
it's high fantasy. It's high fantasy versus mid or low fantasy, which
right.
You can obviously adjust.
But to go even further. Listening to Ed Greenwood talk about how science as a whole has been fundamentally changed down at the molecular level by the gods and stuff like that, and reinforced in the weave, with black powder not being able to actually be black powder, and how splitting an atom could never happen, or it would only happen once, and then the gods would make it so splitting an atom could never exist. It's kind of I was always with you with that, and then ever since listening to Ed Greenwood talk about how he designed Faerun, I'm like, okay, Faerun is just everyone has magic spells because that's just the way the gods want it to be, and I've been a lot more okay with it recently than I have been in the past.
Yeah, I get that Forgotten Realms, and so this is clearly a Forgotten Realms class, and Forgotten Realms is your super high fantasy, super magical. I still think the reason they have to do it is because they've failed to give other options that are the equivalent fun of magic. Magic is fun because of its numerous options, right? When you have spells, you have tons of options available to you. Well, they have failed to give those kind of choices to any other class, and that's why they just have to give everything magic.
But when they tried, it was universally panned, and that was 4th edition, where they gave fighters all these really cool physical abilities that could stand up the spells. And yeah, and you could argue that you're using an encounter power, just like using a spell encounter power. Just encounter powers, they're not really spells; they're just, your powers. But the flavor was there, and everybody hated it, so they went back to the old Vance system.
Because you saw the glimmer of it in like you have the Battle Master, which is, to my opinion, should have just been part of the base fighter. Like those kind of things.
Yeah, that was another missed opportunity again.
Yes.
5e 2024.
Because that would have easily given the fighter a resource that every subclass could draw on to be non-magical options that can be the equivalent of magic, but still gives you that range and breadth of options when you can use different fighting techniques and fighting schools and things like that. That could have given that to rogues and barbarians too, much in the way that if you look at Level Up Advanced 5e, that's what they've done. Rogues, barbarians, fighters, and rangers get to choose a combat style, and the combat style gives them different techniques that they can use that enhance their combat ability. Rangers, in fact, in their game are inherently non-spellcasters, except for the one subclass that gets spells.
Yeah, but they did try to change it up a little bit, and they did do that with this edition, with Cunning Strike and adding the weapon masteries to that. Too much to as we may or may not think that the weapon masteries failed as a mechanic.
They started to. I don't think they went far enough. They were too afraid to change things too drastically, and that is kind of the.
And I think that's the failing of them not wanting to make a 6th edition, and instead wanting it to be backwards compatible.
Yep. And I was just about to say that if they're going to make a 6th edition that's wholly brand new, I would expect those changes to be in there. But because this is just a 5th edition Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, then. Yeah, they can't make those back-end math changes.
Gonna have to wait till 2035 before you get 6th ed.
Yeah. Anyways, that's the level 3 ability. You get a resistance, you get a cantrip, your magic electric boogaloo. Level 9 is Strike Fear, where you do get another one of those cunning strike options. You get 1, which is it costs a single d6 of your sneak attack die, and you can terrify, which means it makes a save or it's frightened.
Seems all right.
Yeah, you definitely have to be evil for this class.
It's based off of intelligence, so I mean, it'll be okay. But it's like a ranger's wisdom save or DC for his spells. They're not going to be great.
I think it's all right for a rogue because a lot of times as a rogue, Dex is your first stat, but intelligence is probably going to be your second.
Unless you're playing the face rogue, but yeah.
Yes. Unless you're playing specific types of rogues that call for different ability scores, that's usually your go-to. So, yeah, you can frighten people. It makes sense. It works with the subclass. Level 13, you get Aura of Malevolence. You radiate malign power associated with one of the dead 3. Not evil at all.
Nope.
At the start of each of your turns, each creature within a 10-foot emanation around you takes damage equal to your intelligence modifier. The damage is the same as the type of resistance you have, depending on which allegiance you chose. And damage dealt by this aura ignores resistance. This is okay.
I'm starting to see more things that are ignoring resistance.
Ignore resistance is good, but you have to keep in mind that you're only taking damage equal to your int modifier, so you're going to maybe you're taking 3 or 4 damage. At level 13, you get an ability that deals 3 damage to creatures within 10 feet of you.
And honestly, a rogue with a +3 intelligence modifier is not common.
That just seems kind of weak for
suffer as I have.
Especially at level 13 for most games, this is probably the pinnacle of what you might hope to get. There's not a lot of games that are going beyond this.
Yeah.
So
the thing that really sucks too is I really like the next 2 abilities too, but I'm trying to look up the specifics. But I remember in the Baldur's Gate book, they introduced a new monster, and I might be able to pull it up here fast enough, that had that same aura on it. It was one of the Cultists of the Dead 3.
Right, so now we're drawing our abilities from marketing tie-in novels.
No. Well, yes and no. So there's the Cultists of the Dead 3. The beginning part of Descent into Avernus, the Baldur's Gate section as a whole, doesn't have anything to do with the second half of the adventure because it was a marketing thing that failed. But they, the Ball and his followers, all the cultists, have an aura of murder on them that says as long as their creature is not incapacitated, they give off an aura of 5 feet, and everyone within hostile creatures within that aura gain vulnerability to piercing damage. And they can
that's a big thing in the last act of Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of where this ability is coming from, this aura of malevolence. But this is a fucking
nowhere near as cool.
CR 1/4 monster has an aura of murder that does double damage basically with daggers. And this guy doesn't get it till fucking level 13. Like,
this is not double damage.
I know it's not even double damage. Like if it's double damage, it'd be worth it.
A couple of points of damage.
Yeah, like I said, you'd be lucky to have a +2 bonus in intelligence, let alone a +3 by the time you're level 13. Yeah. I mean, I'm playing like a type of rogue. Like I started off as an inquisitive rogue in the game that I'm playing, and I had a decent intelligence. It was a 12, but no, what's more important, my dexterity and my con.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to use that all the time. It's certainly going to be better than doing something that's maybe going to get me an extra point of damage when I'm level 13.
All right,
that's a weak ability.
Oh, well, it gets worse. I'm looking at the level 17 one. Level 17, Dread Incarnate. You gain the following benefits. You have advantage on attack rolls against any creature with the frightened condition and murderous intent. When you roll for your sneak attack damage, you can treat a roll of a 1 or a 2 on the die as a 3. So murderous intent is actually good.
Yeah.
You know, rolling a 1 or a 2, counting it as a 3 on all of your sneak attack dice. That's actually really good.
Yes.
But the get advantage against frightened creatures, I'm sure you have strike fear, but this is a level 17. On top of the level 13, how many people are going to stick with a rogue up to that level and not multi-class out of it into something better?
A lot of people.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of games, honestly, and I know that that's not necessarily the games you guys play in, but a lot of games don't multi-class.
I'm one of the few.
It's like 1 or 2 that do.
I'm one of the very few players in our group that doesn't.
And also the other reason in 2024 to go up the high level in a single class is so you can get those special, not epic level feats, but are totally epic level feats.
Yeah.
So that is of importance to continue up in level.
Yeah,
and honestly, there's a level 17 ability. I'm looking at the other official 2024 ones. It's about on par. Especially if you're running around with another guy in the party that is maybe like some sort of a anti-paladin type of guy that's also throwing down fear all the time. I mean, you could definitely make that pretty sick.
If you build your party around it, sure, you could have advantage often.
Yeah,
and the problem is advantage is pretty easy to get nowadays in fifth edition. So
it's insanely easy with a fucking rogue because you have Vex and Sap and all that shit.
Yeah, or just play an assassin where you always, if they haven't acted, you're on advantage. Like there's so many ways.
There's just a lot of other ways to get advantage. So I feel like half the time when this would come up, you might already have advantage, and so it just doesn't do anything. Yeah. The second part is good. Murderous intent is great because that means your sneak attack is far more likely to deal a significant amount of damage at your high level, and that's great.
Yeah. I mean, you're rolling 3s for everything at minimum.
And the other thing I could think of is they probably balance this class around you having a headband of intellect on at all times. I mean, like, why not, really?
Am I not astonishing?
By the way, I have a question since some of you have played so much fucking Baldur's Gate 3. Did they nerf the headband of intellect? Because I thought
the headband of intellect that's in Baldur's Gate 3 is the one you get off of the ogre.
Right.
It is not a full headband of intellect.
Okay.
It only gives you an AC of 17. I forgot what it's called. It's like a damaged headband of intellect or something like that.
Yeah.
It gives you an intelligence of 17. Yeah.
I realized that, and I was like, shouldn't it be 19? Because that's what all of them are. But
yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
Well.
Yep. Let's do it.
So, all right. Here's everybody's favorite. Jay's definitely favorite class that has yet to become out. It is the Spellfire Sorcerer. Spellfire Sorcery.
God.
Radiate raw magic potential. So, let's get into it. Spellfire came about, with Forgotten Realms into it. It's been part of the stories and lore of the Forgotten Realms. I feel like if you're going to adapt it into 5th edition, the Sorcerer is the right class to do it, but this was not the way. And we'll get into that, I guess. We'll start off level 3. You get Spellfire Burst. When you spend at least 1 sorcery point as part of the magic action or as a bonus action on your turn, you can unleash one of the following magical effects of your choice. You can only do so once per turn. You can do Bolstering Flames. You or one creature you can see within 30 feet gains temp hit points equal to 1d4 plus your charisma modifier. Or Radiant Fire. One creature you can see within 30 feet succeeds on a dex save or takes 1d6 fire or radiant damage. Yeah,
we're going to have to read through all of it.
Let's go through. Maybe go through the whole thing, and then we can just tear it apart.
Yeah.
With it, because yeah, you got to get through the whole of what Spellfire is and what this is not. So level 3, you like every sorcerer, you get your spells. You get a pretty decent spell list, and they are kind of on theme. I'll give it that.
I don't hate the spell list. It was fine.
The spell list is on theme for what the class should be. So this is one of the few parts I agree with. Good spell list, good staying true to what older editions Spellfire lets you do. Level 6 is absorb spells. You always have counterspell prepared whenever you successfully counterspell. Basically, when it fails the save against your counterspell, you regain 1d4 sorcery points. Level 14 is hone Spellfire. Your Spellfire burst improves. It bumps up the 2 level 3 abilities. You do more fire damage or give more temp HP.
Yeah. Let's see. You add your sorcerer level to the temp hit points gained from bolstering flames, and the 1d6 of radiant fire increases to 3d6. At level 14, a whole 3d6.
Yeah. All right. Level 18. I like that. I appreciate the name. That is a good throwback reference to the old Spellfire, Crown of Spellfire. As a bonus action, you gain the following abilities for 1 minute. This is your big sorcerer transformation ability. Once you use this, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest unless you spend 7 sorcery points to restore your use. You get Burning Life Force. Once per turn, when you are hit by an attack, you can expend a number of hit dice up to your charisma modifier. You roll all the expended hit dice and reduce the amount of damage from that attack equal to the total roll plus your sorcerer level. You get fly speed of 60 feet and can hover. And you get spell avoidance whenever you're subjected to a spell or magical effect that allows you to make a save. You take only half damage if you succeed and no damage, or you take no damage if you succeed and only half if you fail. You can't use it if you're incapacitated. That is the Spellfire Sorcerer.
Okay, so
anyone want to do a deep dive of the history of Spellfire before we get into the ripping apart the class?
Because it seemed fine to me.
Yeah,
okay. You want to do it, Jay?
No. I will let somebody else do the deep dive into Spellfire. I wanted to say, if you just look at the class as written, it actually operates fine. Like, I don't really have a problem with that. I have all of my problems stem from it straight because it is not even remotely what Spellfire is. And if somebody wants to go through the entirety of it.
Yeah, I'll go through the brief. I'm not going to do the deep dive.
Yeah.
But I'll go through the brief of what Spellfire is. Though I'll say, even without that, I still feel like this is kind of a generic. But Spellfire was a special ability in the Forgotten Realms that is granted by the goddess Mystra. It is almost in the original lore of it. It was almost as much an affliction as a blessing, especially if you didn't really understand how to wield it. Almost all of Mystra's chosen could wield it and didn't really have to deal with the affliction side of it because they were her chosen and they were all, immortal super wizards. But every once in a while you would get somebody, it was very rare for somebody that couldn't cast spells to get it, but every once in a while you actually would find somebody that couldn't cast spells that was just born with the ability of Spellfire. And Spellfire allowed you to absorb magic around you. And in the old editions, before you learned how to use it, you just did it automatically, whether you wanted to or not. You were almost a
Yep.
hindrance to your party. Like the cleric would cast a spell near you, and you would suck it up before it would have its effect, because you just couldn't help yourself. And it was just, you would absorb magic, you held it inside yourself, and then you unleashed it as bursts of mystic blue fire. And the blue fire would burn targets away, and it also ate away other magic, like dissolved magic that it came into contact with. And then people that learn to use Spellfire could learn to use it to do certain things, like heal themselves, like take the magic in and heal themselves. They could use it to fly, though they weren't really hovering. They were like, Iron Man jetting around with flames shooting out of their hands and feet. And they could, they would eat magic. There was also always the danger of Spellfire of absorbing too much magic to the point where it would start just automatically bursting flame out around you, not caring who else was around you. It just came out of you if you absorbed too much and burned everyone around you. And you could also, if you chose to, you could basically take all the magic you have absorbed into yourself, and you could do the equivalent of basically Staff of the Magi yourself. Sacrifice your own life to explode with all of the magic that was in you.
Yep, big bada boom.
Yeah. So the whole kind of thing of Spellfire, it was very blasty. If you had it in second edition, they actually wrote up a thing in one of the either Follows guides or Pages from the Mages, one of the magic books from it, where they detailed a sort of Spellfire class, but it was just sort of if you had Spellfire, you got inflicted with this forced multi-class, which divided your XP, and you would gain these abilities. And so most of it was taking magic you absorbed from the world around you and just unleashing fire. Mm-hmm. You weren't casting a lot of spells, you were just unleashing fire and destroying magic in front of you, and then later on you can learn to heal and fly a little bit.
Yeah, the first appearance of Spellfire that I am familiar with at all was in the novel Spellfire.
Mm-hmm.
And in that novel is a rogue, not a spellcaster at all, a rogue who ends up with the ability. And mind you, as they are a rogue and they never really truly learned to operate Spellfire properly, they did end up blowing themselves up in the end. Hashtag spoilers if you're ever going to read the novel.
There were mentions of it before, like they mentioned that the symbol and Elminster had Spellfire. And that was one of the things that made the symbols in the Witch Queen so dangerous, was she had this ability of Spellfire, and why she was such a potent counter to the Red Wizards, because she could just absorb all of their magic easily and throw it back them.
Yeah. So I've oh, good. Chris.
So it looks like, according to Forgotten Realm Wiki, and Ed Green went back in 2021, there's Spellfire and Silverfire.
Mm-hmm.
Spellfire is raw magic, which is raw weave energy, and Silverfire is the Mister granted ability to channel the weave. The same, it's kind of like the same abilities, but like one, according like his words are, one is a flamethrower rather than a blowtorch. So the ones that the people were gifted seem to be basically this controlled ability to absorb and redirect powers and explode powers and whatnot, versus the uncontrollable, it sounds like from the rogue story, where it's just completely uncontrolled and can kind of go crazy.
They mentioned some people had both. Like most of the Chosen had both. They had actual legit Spellfire, but they also had Mistress Silverfire, which is the safe version.
Yeah. So the thing is, the reasons I do not like this is because it's not what I expect from Spellfire.
Yeah. Can I?
Yeah, absolutely.
I pulled out my old 3.0 Magic.
Yep.
And I'm looking through there and how they handled it. And of course, they have a section on Spellfire, Moonfire, and some other stuff in here, including Mage Duels, which is a really cool concept. But they also have the Spellfire Channeler, which is a prestige class that you could pick up.
Mm-hmm.
But the way Spellfire worked in 3rd edition was you could absorb spell energy, like Christian said. It specifically says a Spellfire wielder can ready in action absorb spells targeted at her as if she were a rod of absorption. She gains 1 level of Spellfire energy for every spell level absorbed and can store a number of Spellfire energy levels equal to her constitution. If she has reached her limit, she cannot absorb spells until she expends some of her stored Spellfire pool. If an incoming spell effect has a greater number of spell levels than she can currently store, she absorbs spell levels up to her limit, and the remaining spell levels are divided by the original number of spell levels to determine what fraction of the effect gets through. That just seems complicated as hell. But anyway, you can burn it to do these things. So Spellfire. As standard action, Spellfire wielder can expend stored Spellfire energy levels to as a melee or ranged touch attack, maximum range of 400 feet, dealing a d6 points of Spellfire damage per level expended. Reflex save DC 20. Spellfire damage is half fire and half raw magical power, which is, again, we'll get to the UA in a minute about why I'm kind of upset with how they're doing the damage. Because raw magical power is defined in 5th edition and 5th edition 2024 as force. Spellfire wielder can also heal a target by touch, restoring 2 hit points per level energy. Spellfire energy level expended for this purpose. This is not considered positive energy, however, as it does not injure undead. And then, of course, they have the Spellfire Channeler, who can fly at a certain level. And you're right; they just kind of shoot all around and do what they're going to do. What else did she add? War Wizard of Cormier. But it was a 10 level prestige class back in 3rd edition.
Yep.
But you can drain magic items, you can drain permanent magic items, you gain ability to have improved healing, rapidly blast. So basically, you can essentially Scorching Ray, multiple blasts, Spellfire blasts, which is incredible. And one of the final abilities is Crown of Fire and Maelstrom of Fire.
Yep, Crown of Fire was.
Which is
yeah, and so
yeah,
I'm looking at the 2nd edition Spellfire Channeler.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm looking at the 5th edition Spellfire mage.
Yeah.
So in the 5th edition Spellfire mage, magical.
What book is that out of? Or is that out the UA?
No, this is straight out of fucking Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that was a thing. All right.
Yeah. So let
Is
me read.
Is this a monster stat block?
NPC, but yeah.
Okay, sure.
L'Ariel Silverhand, and I fucking wish I would have known this ahead of time. But anyways, magical heatless silver fire harmlessly erupts from L'Ariel and surrounds her until she is incapacitated, or until she uses an action to quench it. She gains one of the following benefits of her choice, which lasts until the silver fire ends. So even though they're calling it Spellfire, they're still saying that it's silver fire. Okay.
Yeah.
She can breathe underwater. She can survive without food and water. She is immune to magic that would ascertain her thoughts, truthfulness, alignment, or creature type. She gains resistance to cold damage, and she is unharmed by temperatures as low as minus 50 degrees. While the silver fire is present, she has the following additional action options. She can cast a Cure Wounds spell. She can cast a Revivify spell, and release a 60-foot line of silver fire in a 5 feet wide or a 30-foot cone. And then there's the save and the damage from it. And if she does that ability, the silver fire has a chance of disappearing on a d6, like on a 50% chance of basically ending automatically. So I'd actually used her, and I left her like in this place at the bottom of Waterdeep in our finale for the campaign that we just had, where she was basically almost always there, and like seemed to be basically channeling these magics out, basically to protect the rest of Waterdeep from Manchun. And the party even asked, it's like, how could she have survived down here for a month without food or water? Well, this is the answer. I don't even know it.
Well, I mean, also she's like a 30th level wizard, but
that's the actual answer. Because Spellfire does not. It's never given you the ability to not eat, not sleep, not drink. Like that's not part of it.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's as recent as, like I said, 2017.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ed Greenwood's refinement definition of it back in 2021. So, in all these cases, just, having just been introduced to this, just seeing NPCs with it, from what I know, this is not impressive as a class. It makes sense. But
I feel like if what the class should have been is this should have been a blaster. You should have been able to channel your sorcery points and even maybe your spell levels and maybe even your hit dice into doing the core kind of features of Spellfire, either blasting people with fire, granting flight to yourself, or healing. Like if they had done those things,
they
and
do
it
that.
should like give you the like immunity to fire. That has always been part of Spellfire, even in second
I mean,
edition. Just
yeah.
having Spellfire made you completely immune to fire and all effects of fire, smoke, inhalation, any of that stuff, magical or otherwise. You were not touched by fire. You could also use it to purge yourself of disease, molds, fungi, petrification, paralysis. Even if you couldn't act or you were paralyzed, you could just Spellfire would just purge it from you.
So kind of like a lay on hands pool in 5th edition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a real missed opportunity to be creative with the sorcerer instead of just try to make it just another slight variation of sorcery. Like you could have just given this a real like, hey, you don't even need to really worry about casting spells and stuff because what you're going to want to do is take all of your spells and channel them into sorcery and use your sorcery to do all this cool stuff.
If they gave another pool of Spellfire energy and you could burn your spell levels off, I'm not casting Fireball. I'm gonna eat 3, that 3rd level spell slot to get Spellfire points, and then do shit with Spellfire. That would have been a much better way to go with this.
Yeah, well, they didn't. You have sorcery points. So you just say, hey, you use your sorcery points to channel Spellfire and do.
So I think about when you guys are talking about this, having a separate pool of abilities and whatnot. I will say it's like that they did start doing stuff like Christian, what you were saying with using hit die and stuff like that at the Crown of Spellfire ability at higher levels. But almost like they needed to have that much earlier and then expand upon it much later instead of it just starting around level 18.
Yeah,
should start at level 3.
So
yeah,
one of the pieces
it could have been cool is if you could have said, hey, if you're out of sorcery points, you can burn your own hit dice to act as sorcery points or spell slots,
Yeah, that would have been cool. As what Jay's comments was having a separate pool of things. You remember the Christmas module that I wrote, and I had the artificer that had like the bag of tricks where they had to collect junk and throw it in the bag and they could pull out toys and shit like that.
Yep.
And it was a separate pool of just like stuff that's there. When he was talking to our friend Jeffrey Ludwig about it, he stated that like from a design standpoint, they really don't like having extra pools of things already in a class that already has pools of stuff to do. Like tacking on that level of complication just doesn't work for your average player.
I agree. I agree. For a sorcerer, you already have spell slots and sorcery points, and now you have a third thing of points, and you also later use your hit dice. Like that's a lot of like little fiddly bits to keep track of, where you could just make it all your existing pool of sorcery points and draw from that.
That actually brings me back to the point I initially wanted to try to make with this whole class. I do not feel that the Spellfire should be a class.
It should be a fucking feat that you level up in.
Well, okay, so looking at it in 3rd edition, it worked. It's a prestige class, but the way you got prestige classes is completely different from how you obtain a subclass in 5th edition.
Yeah.
Now, you could be literally any class. You could be a fighter and take the Spellfire prestige class, because the only requirements, you had to have 8 ranks of concentration, 2 ranks of arcana, 2 ranks of spellcraft, and then you had to take the feats of endurance and Spellfire wielder. So anybody could learn those. It's easier if you're a spellcaster, but it's not a requirement.
Yeah.
And at that point, then it works. Like the idea is that anyone should be capable of doing this, not just a sorcerer.
Yeah.
And
kind of like how in 4th edition you could get the spell plague, and that caused random chaotic stuff to happen, and you could delve deeper into the spell plague afflictions, and things could happen with you. And it was different feats as you leveled up, but you got a ton more feats in 4th edition than you did in 5th.
Truthfully, they should have just made it a feat with maybe some other requirement feats.
I think I could have done it. The way they've done the quasi feat trees, like they did with Sign of the Outer Planes, and then they have the other outer plane like thing you could build off. Same thing they did with the Dragonlance things, where you could be a knight apprentice, and then you get the other.
Right.
You could have made it like one of those 2 feats, and in the resource you would burn, which makes sense to me as a Spellfire reader, is you burn your hit dice. You burn your hit dice to gain Spellfire resources, and then you do damage or whatever
magic items.
Yeah, yeah, and that would be another thing is you could maybe say, hey, you burn hit dice, but you can regain those hit dice by absorbing magic from items or a spell.
Yeah, there's just so many better ways to utilize something with such a storied history through Forgotten Realms, and this subclass just doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't hit any of the right notes really.
No, it doesn't for me.
All
Like
right, well,
I would be fine with the sorcerer if they made it, if it was not this sorcerer. I think I get that 5th edition is not gonna do it the way that they would have in previous editions. They don't do prestige classes. They don't really do classless kind of things. But this
Yep.
was just not the way to run it as a sorcerer.
It was a big miss.
Yes.
And I will just say, power wise, it's a fucking joke. Like, seriously, honed Spellfire, your level 14 ability, 3d6 damage.
Well, okay,
Neat.
that is actually not bad because you're going to be casting a fireball at level 14, and then you burn a sorcery point, and that's just 3d6 free damage. For one sorcery point, it's another amount of damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's for
still
one dude.
One target.
Okay.
It's for one target. That's
Yeah.
not.
But all you had to do is something you were going to do anyway.
That is true.
Yeah, but compared to the other level 14 abilities, it's kind of a joke. And the fact that it doesn't happen until level 14 is crazy. Until then, it's just
sooner.
an extra D6. Yay.
Yes. Now the extra D6 of damage up to level 14 is absolute garbage. At 14 it becomes okay.
You know, the 13 levels you're going to play of any given
right, yeah.
WotC module. So great,
Yeah.
you get an extra 2d6 when you're beyond any of the levels or campaigns that are currently out. Cool. I guess the Eve of Vecna one goes to 20 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, overall not great. But let's talk about something that I think we're probably all okay with. The Blade Singer Wizard.
Yep.
The Blade Singer is basically unchanged. They made a couple of slight things. We'll get with the thing that Jay's unhappy about is that there's nothing in this about being elf only. At least in the previous 5th edition Forgotten Realms book, they said, hey, this is elf only, and then they gave the little sidebar that like, hey, look, if your DM's really nice and you, I don't know, buy him a beer, a 6-pack or something, maybe he'll let you play Blade Singer if you're not an elf.
Better buy me a damn stuffed crust pizza.
But it was very clear it was an elf only unless your DM says otherwise. This says nothing of that. Maybe when you get to the book it'll be more clear, but I'm gonna guess not.
No, they're taking away all sorts of restrictions.
No, I mean that change didn't actually happen. It actually happened when they revised it for Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
Oh, really? Did they take away the elf thing in there?
Yeah, so what it says in Tasha's is originally created by elves, this tradition has been adopted by non-elf practitioners who honor and expand on the elven ways. That's
okay.
it.
Whatever.
So it's been like that for
either way. The Blade Singer.
I think that goes back as far as the Sword Coast Adventurers guide.
Maybe.
No, in the Sword Coast Adventure, it did say that this was elf. That's where it was. This is an elven thing.
That was the last time I played one. It was I had to be an elf. So
you had to be an elf unless you asked your DM and your DM gave you special exception or something.
Right.
But this is essentially unchanged. I'm not going to go through all the stuff because it's basically the same. The only thing they really did change is previously the Blade Singer gave you proficiency in armor that you couldn't wear because your abilities don't work if you're wearing armor. So they just took that away. Instead, you get proficiency with all melee martial weapons that don't have the two-handed or heavy property, and you can use melee weapons as your spellcasting focus. Other than that, it's pretty much identical. It is just the Blade Singer that was always the best wizard subclass, and it is still the best wizard subclass.
I hate Blade Singers.
It is the glass cannon.
No, it's not, because I've had people fucking be Blade Singers and never die, have an AC of like 750,000.
You can get your AC up really high, as Dan played a Blade Singer in the last game that I ran, and with shield at times you could get your AC up really high for a couple of rounds, as long as you're willing to expend shields and stuff. But you can still get hit, as Dan will attest to. There was not a problem, because when you do get hit, you're a wizard with wizard hit points, and it
you
hurts.
still have a D6 hit points.
Yes, so let me tell you about the Goblin Blade Singer that I had to fucking deal with in Adventures League.
Well, there's your problem. You're in Adventures League, so you can't change stats to handle anything.
By the way, I just confirmed what Christian said. The first after the first paragraph in Blade Singing in Sword Coast Adventures, guys, is restriction: elves only. Only elves and half elves can choose Blade Singer.
As it should be.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a player that one of the DMs. He was basically like, "Hey, I'm going to build this Blade Singer, and it's going to be really overpowered." I was like, "I don't care," and it was just.
But then you did care.
It's not that I cared. I let people in Adventures League have their power fantasy, because there's a lot of times there's a lot of DMs that play in the games who don't get a chance to flex their character building muscle. Yep. Yeah, so I accept it, and I say I'm frustrated in jest as it was. But yeah, I fucking couldn't do any damage to him. If I got a spell off that would have hit, it was counterspelled and shit and all that stuff. It was near invincible, and being a goblin, I couldn't lock him down either, because he had all his fucking goblin shiftiness.
That's why they have to be elves only.
Haragon Blade Singer would suck.
Fleetfoot is fine. But
yeah, they're very broken to me.
They're not broken. They are definitely the best
to me, they're
wizard,
a tank.
But they're not. They're an occasional tank. They are very much a glass cannon. You can do a lot of damage. You can be defensive selectively, but in a long enough engagement, you run into trouble.
Yeah,
I would say that you don't have engagements that last that long normally.
I'm going to go through and look at all of the wizard subclasses and find you one that's better.
No, there's not. There is not.
Abjuration's great.
Abjuration
maybe in 2014, but not in 2025.
The 2025 Abjuration. The 2025 Abjurer, I was reading it the other day. If you're another spellcaster, you do not want to fight that. You do not want to fight the fucking Abjurer.
Abjurers are good, and they always have been. So,
yeah.
I mean, he's going to have, depending on what level you are, he's going to have advantage on all saving throws against everything you do, as well as he's not going to take your damage, because he's just going to burn spell slots to not take your damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can't fucking spell save out of a goddamn rapier to the face.
Well, you can still cast shield.
Yeah, he's still got to have cast shield.
And I'll counterspell that shield.
And he'll counterspell
the shield on the Blade Singer.
You can't counterspell the counterspell. He already used his reaction for the shield.
Yeah, but you're not going to have shield either.
He doesn't need shield. He has fucking already a base 23 AC.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, what I had said earlier, though, is your little puny ass rapier isn't going to do damage, because he's just going to absorb the damage.
Yeah.
You have to hit them with a hell of a lot. Like, they are very, very difficult to kill.
When the Blade Singer comes out, we'll duel.
I like this plan. Yeah, this is a good Gary Con thing.
Oh my god. Nerds.
Nerd fights.
Yep.
Fucking walking with a Warforged Blade Singer. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Blade Singer. Yeah, Blade Singers are really good.
You can't be. You have to be an elf.
Not anymore, it seems.
To backtrack real quick, because Dan, we actually forgot to go back to this on the Spellfire Sorcerer about radiant damage, because I don't have the book in front of me. So the Spellfire damage used to be half and half. It was half fire and half. They didn't call it radiant, but it was
called quote raw magic damage.
No, from third edition.
From third edition, it was raw magic damage is what it said.
Okay, but if you look at the actual type of damage it does, it's divine or radiant, or it's whatever the equivalent of radiant was. I don't remember what it was called in third edition.
I mean, it was I think it was divine damage or something like that.
Yeah, it was like it was half fire and half.
But yeah, if you look in if you look in the 3.0, like I literally just read it, it just said half raw magic damage, but it didn't actually have the definition of what it was. Basically, it was unresistible is what they were trying to get at. because
Yeah.
I think like what didn't they have like good and evil damage or something like that, and fiends could resist good damage,
Yes.
and angels
Yeah.
could resist evil damage or something like that. I think they've avoided all that by just saying raw magic damage. It can't resist it. Fuck off. Which is fine, but I would make it force. Honestly, maybe make it split force and radiant, or force and fire.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what they're going for, I would agree. Just make it force damage, because fucking nothing resists force damage.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point.
Yeah. Yeah, without pulling out my book, I don't know if I can find that word, the term they called it. But anyway,
It doesn't matter.
yeah, we can move on.
Is it time for the monster manual?
I
yeah.
mean, I got an ecology of the Superb Owlbear.
Oh yeah, we
I
can
did-
handle that for monster manual.
Yeah, let's do Monster Manual first. It'll probably
Oh
be
my
less
gosh.
awesome. It'll be less awesome than the Superb Owlbear.
It really is. The monster manual came out this week. I picked up the collector's edition copy from my LGS. I got the base copy in the mail today. Finally, instead of like a month later. And I did use it for Adventures League for the first time, just because I had it on hand, and I will continue to use it just to see if I can find any issues. The monsters I did weren't really crazy. It was just a treant and a giant spider were the only ones that I really used. Everything else was a unique monster from Eve of Ruin that I had to use. And so far, I have to say that having this book in my hands, I really like it. I like that all the monsters are alphabetical. I like that from a choice of design from as a technical writer, being my profession for 3 decades now. I like that they still group up the monsters in the back. I understand, like, you got to go either way. You can go with how they did it in 2014, where they grouped all the demons together under D. Or you could have it so basically everything's alphabetical, and they group demons in an appendix in the back. And they tell you what pages are the demons are in, which is fine.
As somebody
nothing-
who's been looking at it the old way forever, I
don't mind because I had an old like monster manual before like from first edition where they did do it in alphabetical order. Like
Yeah.
they used
the one-
to like
the
it
one-
went from alphabetical
The
order.
loose 3-ring binder ones.
Yeah, they went from
Yeah.
alphabetical order in the very first monster manual, and then the Fiend Folio and stuff. That was all alphabetical order, and then they transitioned somewhere maybe in second edition. I can't
think
remember.
third. It's either
Maybe it was
late.
third.
It's either late second or at third.
But at some point they transitioned to grouping the monsters by, and so you would have when they did dragon, they would have all your dragons.
Yeah.
Or when you did demons, they would do all the demons. And
Yeah.
But I get the kind of change because I don't care either way because I'm a experienced player and I know what is what. But I can see for people that don't know that a gelatinous cube is an ooze, and so it's going to be under O. That's a little weird.
Yeah. So like if so, the last 3 or 4 pages of the monster manual are the monsters by creature type, the monsters by group, the monsters by challenge rating, and the monsters. Oh yeah, monster by challenge rating. That's the last one. So if those 4 pages weren't in it, then being alphabetical would be terrible. But because they included these 4 pages, this small little touch that they did to it, it makes this entire book worth it. And they also kind of went a step further, and this is a lot like the same things why I like the Dungeon Master's Guide. They have monster licks where they basically showed you the conversions they made from the 2014 to the 2025. They have monsters by habitat as well too. They went out of their way to make sure that the book was as organized as possible and as easy to access the data as needed. Because they're honestly competing with D&D Beyond. Like being able to just go into a search bar and type in gelatinous ooze or gelatinous cube and seeing all the stats there without having to search for it in a book. This makes it a lot easier. This book is great. It's a decent list of monsters. I don't think there's anything new. I think all the new monsters that they had have always existed in D&D in one way or another.
Some variant, I mean, at least via third party. I really appreciate the appendix.
Yeah.
Where they basically list out all of the 2014 monsters that have been converted to something with a different name.
Yep.
And so, like, if you're looking for your orc Eye of Grumsh, look up the Cultist Fanatic, then apply orc stats to him. Orc
Yeah.
Warchief, look up Tough Boss. Orog,
Yep.
Berserker, and so on.
And so you kind of bring up the one big issue people have with this is the fact that orc and drow are not in this book.
Oh, they took drow out also.
Mhm.
They took out all of the player races out of the book. So drow is gone, orc is gone, deep gnome is gone, and they replaced them with basically like the equivalents of what they would be if they were an NPC, like just a random humanoid. And they kind of give them unique things. Like I said, orc is tough, and like the drow elite warrior is a gladiator. And you just apply those racial stats to them.
See, I would just, and I know me well enough, if I look and I'm like, I need orcs, I'm literally just going to pull out the 2014 book.
Man, that's fine. That's still there.
Fine.
Yeah.
It's still there.
I shouldn't have to, but that's what I would end up doing.
But I don't believe that even in when 4th edition, when I started playing, that the player handbook races had monsters in there. I think
not the player's handbook now.
No, but I think Player's Handbook 2 and 3 had monster races that were becoming player races. There's like some crystalline monster that doesn't exist. Goliath is no longer in here as well either. And it's 2025.
I mean, it never really made sense for
right
in 3rd edition Monster Manual to have elf. I don't need generic stats for an elf. I mean, whatever.
So like, I don't care that they're missing because they are the player character races. If that's what they want to do, that's perfectly fine.
Here's the problem.
I miss the fact that orc is the big bad that everyone can kind of like point to as being like the savage monstrosity that's out there, like from like Lord of the Rings. But we've moved so far away from that like now they're just Warcraft orcs everywhere I go, and no one ever wants to have an evil orc anymore. So they're kind of bending to that, but
they did kind of mention that, like, because we're getting older, and the people of us, there's somebody else talked about it. Maybe it was Professor Dungeon Master. Somebody talked about that when he was playing, when he first started playing D&D, everyone that played D&D had read Lord of the Rings, and that was their like big fantasy Bible, the thing that got them, that was their gateway drug, But nowadays, he's like, my kids, they know what Lord of the Rings is, and they've seen the movies, but they've never read the books. He's like, and these are my kids. They've never read the books. They won't read them, but they know what World of Warcraft orcs are, and that is what younger people know as orcs. That is their introduction to orcs instead of Lord of the Rings. It's World of Warcraft.
Well, not anymore, because nobody plays World of Warcraft.
I still do,
but it's still enough of a thing. Like, it was enough of a cultural thing that it was still kind of a touchstone the way that Lord of the Rings was for our generation.
Yeah.
So
I think it's going to change in the future too.
I keep trying to say this. There's a rabbit hole that this ends up going down, though. Because it's orcs now. Next thing you know, players are, they're going to say, well, bugbears look like Wookiees, so I want to play bugbears. And then bugbears become a standard playable race 20 years from now. So you
could play bugbears in 2nd edition.
I know. No, I know. You could play them a long damn time ago. But if the culture shifts to the point that people view them as Wookiees or furry or adorable, say WotC starts putting out all these cute little bugbear miniatures and plushies, and next thing you know, everybody's wanting to play fucking bugbears, then they're removed because they're a common playable race. This can go
in the base player
nauseam.
handbook. Yeah.
You know what I found in delving into Imaginary Magazine, Adventure Fantasy Magazine, official TSR publication? They put out the rules for 1st edition for AD&D to play Ogre Magi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you wanted to play the Monster Squad, that was always an option.
Yeah.
And
you know what? I don't think
for playing Ogre
Magi,
and man, were they overpowered.
There's
Yeah,
going
like-
to be enough grognards that really want to latch on to the fact that drow have always been there and orcs have always been there, and they're always going to be in their game. They're always going to be inherently evil races, and you know what? They can run their own games. And
evil
it's fine.
or not isn't the point. You have
Right.
to be very careful about this continual pushing of that.
Well-
The more they do this, the more you're going to end up with shit that can't be played or it can't be used as monsters, or it doesn't take too long before that happens. We're seeing it with orcs. We've seen it with drow. Who knows how far that goes.
Well, it's interesting you to mention that, because people brought up, why are the Githyanki then not moved out, because they are a playable race. in the previous
That's
stuff.
next edition. Yeah.
And so, like, if they were to basically, add Githyanki and take them out, I'd be fine with that. If the base player handbook is not going to be the monster races, okay, and then you're going to have to basically make it so those aren't the monster races anymore. Would they eventually add in Goblin and Githyanki and whatnot? Maybe they will. Then we have to start creating new monsters that people are going to generally hate. I think part of storytelling is having a good villain and a good villain group that is always, you can just point at and say, they're the bad guys, we can kill them without feeling sorry for ourselves. But it doesn't happen anymore with orcs. Definitely doesn't happen anymore with fucking drow. It's goblins are borderline fucking there,
Oh, in Pathfinder, goblins have been playable since first edition.
Right.
Yeah, because that was their mascot. So
But
they
guess
made-
what? They're also in the fucking monster manual, and they're very much killable.
Right.
Same
So
thing with Kobold Press. Kobolds are obviously their mascot, so in their very first stuff, they made playable kobolds. But in all of their Tome of Beast books, you still find new kobold monsters that can also be used as adversaries.
yeah.
It can be both. Like, you can have playable orcs that are generally heroic, but just like you can have a human that is a good guy and a human that is an evil cleric, and they can fight each other, you can have the same thing with orcs. You can have a heroic orc that is doing the right thing, and you can have a group of evil orcs serving Orcus or whatever other evil god doing bad things, and have cool stats for them that make them interesting foes to fight.
But that's why they're not in here anymore, is because they became too generic ultimately.
All right.
And that's my thought on it.
Here's the thing. We live in 2025. You can get any PDF of any previous edition, and if you really want to run U1 through U4 and go through Menzoberranzan and slaughtering drow, you can still totally do that. That's not a thing you can't do. If you want to go kill all the giants and against the giants, you can totally do that. If you want to kill all the orcs and keep on the borderlands, that's still a thing you can do. There's nothing saying you can't do that. And, people aren't going to just suddenly forget that all that stuff existed. It doesn't really bother me that it's not in here. And you know what? There's so many other things in here that are worthwhile to look at that I don't want to dwell on anymore. So speaking of which, interesting new stat blocks. All the giants were all pretty much the same fucking stacks of hit points that swing a sword twice around and maybe can throw a boulder that somehow did more damage than their sword, right? So fire giants now have a flaming sword, because why wouldn't they have a flaming sword before? But they do now, which is sweet. Which is actually significant damage. It's 46 plus 7 plus 3d6 fire, and they have 10-foot reach. They have a hammer throw, which is plus 11 ranged attack, 60-foot range or 240 foot up to 240 foot if you can take disadvantage. 3d10 plus 7 plus a d8 fire damage, and the person is pushed back 15 feet straight away from the giant and has disadvantage on its attack roll. That's fucking awesome. Because fire giants in just 5e, they're just guys that can hit real hard. That's all they can do. Hill giant, tree club. They literally rip a tree up out of the ground and hit you with it. And trash flob is their ranged attack.
Nice.
They literally should throw whatever shit they pull off the ground at you.
I hope it makes it
10 plus
difficult
5
terrain.
damage. Oh no, you gain the poison condition till your next turn as you're gagging whatever trash they just
Because they're
threw at you.
throwing their own awful.
I hope so. They're
throwing poo at you.
they're dumb as a box of rocks. They're got a 5 fucking intelligence.
Yeah.
I do have something about the monster manual. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
But we were talking about goblins, becoming fey and just kind of generically neutral now. But hobgoblins, they're still fucking evil, and they're definitely still in here. And if you want a replacement for orcs, use hobgoblins. Hobgoblin warlords in your hobgoblin captain, hobgoblin warrior.
I've been using hobgoblins for years. I actually don't even use orcs in my own campaign. That was never the point.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in here, and I also like that there seems to be multiple variations of standard things that you could use for a given level. So, like, you're in a tavern and there's some guy performing on the stage. You don't feel like making up stats for a bard. You pull out the performer stats. The performer stats have always been crap. It's always like 30 hit points and like an AC of 13, some mediocre abilities. But now there's 3 versions of them. There's the performer maestro, and the performer legend, which is something that I've been, I've been looking for years, because past about level 5, the generic NPC stats are trash, and you got to go to the third party to find something worthwhile.
Sure do.
Or reskin them. So I really like that, and I like the fact that there's multiple. Like there's 3 different pirates. There's pirates, pirate captains, the pirate admiral. That's awesome. That's something that has been missing for some time.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm on board with that. Like giving variants of things. I've been wanting that for a long time.
And same thing, priest acolyte, priest, archpriest, and these are all go from CR 1/2 to CR 12 for the archpriest, which they've stripped down and simplified the stats for the spellcasters, but they didn't make them any less powerful. Like the archpriest doesn't have his full spell list of ninth level and below spells, but he can do a bunch of damage with a bunch of radiant burst attacks. He has Holy Word, which recharges on a 4 to 6, and he has a number of different spells like Flame Strike, upcast to 6th level, Greater Restoration, Raise Dead, Zone of Truth, and Divine Aid, where he can basically cast whatever spell he fucking wants because he's a cleric. And the level 10 ability now is basically casting a spell level 5 or below. So there's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah,
and, generally speaking, I would say I give the Monster Manual a thumbs up.
yeah.
So here's my thing, and I have one issue with one of the things. They in the video they talked about elementals, and they've in the Monster Manual they've done a bunch of like recategorizations of creature types, and some of them seem to make sense and some of them are debatable. They talked about that they moved certain creatures around to different elementals, and they're like, oh, okay, so like for example, Aarakocra are now elementals.
What?
Which I could kind of see, because even from the old editions where they first appeared, they were talked about coming from the elemental plane of air, and where they are servants of the Wind Dukes, which are air elemental lords on the plane of air. So
I'm sorry, Jonathan is not an elemental.
Well, they talk about that they're deciding. So elemental doesn't mean is the same way they talked about aberration, where you are either a creature from the far realm or you are a creature that has been touched or influenced or created via one of those creatures. That's kind of what they look like at Aarakocra. They may not be like composed of elemental air, but they are creatures heavily influenced by their home plane and their service to other creatures of elemental air.
So if I cast Banish on an Aarakocra, it goes to the plane of air?
Yeah, that is their native. That has always been their native plane since they first appeared.
I'm okay with that.
So Aarakocra,
Aarakocra was born on Faerun soil. That is not his home. He gets banished to the plane of air.
Well, their original origin is from the elemental plane of air, and they disperse to various prime worlds.
No, this is going to come up a lot in the next couple of years.
It will.
If he's born and his feet touch, he's born on Faerun soil, and he is banished. Does he get banished nowhere because he's on the Faerun, or does he get banished to the elemental plane of air?
He gets banished nowhere because he's. I'm going to use what I always go to is the Planescape rules, which means Planescape talked about this is where you were born. So if you were from the Prime, where you were born, even if you are normally a different type of creature, or if your species is from a different plane normally, that is your home plane because that is where you were born. So Aarakocra from Faerun if you're in Faerun and you banish them, it doesn't work. If you're on the plane of air and you banish an Aarakocra that is from Faerun, they go back to the prime material.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, obviously,
have fun in your Adventures League, I guess.
Everybody's game is going to be different, but there are games that have to be run as rules as written, and that will come up and it will cause problems.
Hey, it was always defined in Planescape. That's why you had to. One of the things you determined when you were creating your characters if you were a prime or a planner, because that mattered.
Right. Yeah, but that was also second edition.
Yep. But for merfolk are water elementals, are elementals as well for water, which I guess makes sense-ish.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Azer, the door, they're fire doors. They've always actually been elementals, but they're the fire elemental people.
Sure. Okay. That's fine.
Lizardmen are earth elementals.
Well, you lost me for sure on that one.
I mostly agree, except for I recently rewatched a certain episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and the swamp people that are earthbenders.
Yeah, it's always been kind of muddy with the swamp benders, hasn't it?
Muddy.
Yeah. That is now the only way I can think about lizardmen is that they are those like they are those bayou people, earthbenders.
Oh man,
like
all
well,
of them speak. They all speak Cajun now.
Yep, they're all Cajun. That is their personality. Is just those like.
And to go even further of it, does earthbending actually mean plant control? Because I thought they were waterbenders, but Toph could use the fucking trees in the swamp that had roots that went all plant to spy on people, but she's an earthbender. She can't communicate the fucking trees. The waterbending swamp benders could mess with the plants, but they were waterbenders. So how the fuck can Toph with her earth shit communicate through trees?
They were earthbenders. Those swamp people were earthbenders.
No, the swamp people were waterbenders. They were. They stated that they're subsect of water tribe.
I'm going with mudbenders.
Mudbenders or earthbenders? That was confirmed.
I don't know.
Earthbenders can bend mud and lava.
All I know is that lizard people, or lizard folk, lizard men, whatever they are called, are not planar creatures. They're just not.
I agree. I don't know where that came from. I feel like that was a stretch where they were just.
I feel like they were trying to find native inhabitants for all the different planes, and they're like, yeah, we got merfolk, we got Azer, we got Aarakocra. What do we have for Earth? Like, I don't know, swamp guys.
Yeah, I feel like that was a real weird stretch in that, like, they just, because I would have been more like happy with water, but I don't think lizard folk were anything other than lizard folk, and I think it was okay for them to be humanoids. Elemental is just weird, like, especially for Earth. Like, wouldn't it have made more sense to choose something like, I don't know, like, remember what was it called, Peck? The little Earth things.
Yeah.
Like, you have those. Why didn't you use those?
Yeah, that's weird.
Maybe it's because like the Zorn are kind of like lizardy in a way, and they just kind of like taking a lot of Xanax. And
what I really want to know is what plane is the Superb Owlbear from?
Well, before I still got two more things about the monster manual first before segue off.
Well, we're well over an hour.
You're trying.
So.
Yeah, it was a great segue, but I got two more things.
All right, we'll make it quick.
The poisonous snake is no longer poisonous. It's now correctly venomous.
Well, thank goodness.
Oh no!
Oh, thank goodness.
I'm glad we got that
corrected years of wrong.
I mean, scientific wrong.
Yeah, we have to fix the English language there.
So, one thing I was really waiting for was the Terrask, because it's very near and dear to my heart. And they mentioned that the Terrask was going to be the highest CR monster in the monster manual.
And they were going to make kaiju.
They were going to make the Terrask great again. And they specifically stated that they were going to give it an ability to deal with the whole, I'm just going to hit it with a magic bow on my flying carpet from 700 feet away, and eventually I'm going to just needle the fucking Terrask to death.
Well, I will say pretty much all very powerful monsters have some sort of ranged ability and some ranged legendary ability. Thank freaking Christ.
So I was thinking, okay, cool. They're going to go with the Godzilla thing and give it some kind of force blast, elemental blast, or some other kind of thing.
Lord, I hope not.
I mean, like, that's what the advanced Dungeons and Dragons or
Advanced
Whatever the
5e.
other book.
What I want
Advanced
is
5e.
they need to throw. It needs to be able to just throw a house. Like that's
Well,
what I want.
I was very unimpressed with the Terrask. It is better. It has 6 legendary resistances. Still has its magic resistance as reflective carapace. It's a siege monster. It does 1 bite attack and 3 other attacks between its claw, tail, or any combination thereof. It can move its speed as a legendary action, and when it does, it makes a shockwave from 60 feet around itself and it fucks people up. It can basically move up to half the speed, make an attack. It can swallow people. So they modified it a little bit. But the cool ability that they were like hinting at was the greatest fucking thing ever is this. Thunderous Bellow. Constitution saving throw. DC 27. Each creature and each object that isn't being worn or carried in a 150-foot cone on a failure takes 78 thunder damage, and the target has the deafened and frightened conditions until the end of its next turn. On a success, half damage only.
All right. I mean, Godzilla roars.
That's just a Godzilla roar, but that doesn't... I don't care if the roar does damage, but that can't be the attack that it's going to stop the flyers with. Like, where's the throwing the rock? Where's the fucking shooting a magic spine off its back or some shit?
Hey, it needed a ranged attack. They gave it a ranged attack. I'm still going to just have it throw houses at people.
Yeah. And then getting quickly to the whole carrion crawler debacle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this debacle popped up for a little bit where the carrion crawler, a CR2 monster, has an attack called Paralyzing Tentacles. So each turn, it can basically use its Paralyzing Tentacles and make 1 bite attack. Paralyzing Tentacle is Dexterity saving throw, DC 12. 1 creature the carrion crawler can see within 10 feet. On a failure, the target has the poison condition and repeats the save at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. After 1 minute, it automatically succeeds. While poisoned, the target has the paralyzed condition. So, you can't, when you get hit with a tentacle, rules as written, you have to make a dex save to get out of it, but you're paralyzed, so you can never get out of this poisoned attack. And I kind of understand...
And the reason for that is because if you are paralyzed, you automatically fail dex saves for anybody who is wondering.
And strength.
And strength, yes.
Yeah. So I was wondering, it's like, okay, what about the Chol, which is just a couple pages over to the right? It also has paralyzing tentacles. Okay?
The which one? What does?
The Chol.
Okay.
The Chol is a CR4 monster. The Chol makes 2 pincer attacks and uses paralyzing tentacles. Its paralyzing tentacles is a Constitution saving throw, DC 13. 1 creature grappled by the Chol. The target has a poison condition and repeats the save at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on its success. After 1 minute, it automatically succeeds. While poisoned, the target has a paralyzed condition. Same tentacles, but one is like a free-flowing attack, and one only can work while it's grappled.
So I think they fucked up. Like it's supposed to be.
They definitely did.
It's supposed to be a dex save to avoid the tentacle, and then a con save to remove the paralysis.
Yeah.
But with the Chol, you have to be grappled before you can do his paralyzing tentacles, and it just automatically hits you because you can't dodge it because you're grappled.
Right. You don't need the
and
dex.
then it's a con save.
Yeah.
So really, it's the carrion crawler should just be a con save. It's just there's too many of them. You can't dodge out of them if you're within 5 feet of it, which I'm okay with, but the carrion crawler is just going to automatically kill everybody. Like that's fucking stupid.
If you run it rules as written, it is the best monster of all time.
For CR2, absolutely.
And the best part is the art. They kept bragging about the art and showing off like how like these really cool scenes for the art. And so the art for the carrion crawler is, I guess, an orc on the ground, paralyzed with this gnome and with a torch in its hands, basically fending off a carrion crawler. But then there's another one to her left, and there's another one in the far back, and then there's another one there too. So you're talking about 4 carrion crawlers against 2 people, like a party of CR2. They fucking dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like
carrion crawlers were always dangerous. When I first got introduced to D&D, Like that was one of the first things in the red box, if I remember right, and it fuck a party up.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah, I remember dying to them in the ruins of New Flan in the Pool of Radiance back in about 1989. And I was like, what the hell just happened? Nothing even, like, I just couldn't move, and then I just died. Yeah.
Yep. But you know what they didn't have back then is superb owlbears.
They did not.
Superb Owlbear.
I'm gonna segue this.
Okay. So the Superb Owlbear. So everyone is familiar with the fact that the Super Bowl's this weekend. Everyone's probably also familiar with the fact that about 10 years ago somebody made a typo, and it was the greatest typo on the internet, and they mistyped Super Bowl to Superb Owl. So we've gone ahead here at Grumpy Dungeons Masters and created the Superb Owlbear, which is the owlbear at its finest. AC 14, 105 hit points, speed of 40, strength of 20, of course, con of 20. Charisma is a little low, but you know he's it's magnificent. Superb awareness. Superb Owlbear can't be surprised, especially not by sudden halftime events, flying objects, or unannounced visitors. Crowd roar. As a bonus action, the Superb Owlbear emits a deafening screech. Creatures within 30 feet of it must succeed in a DC 15 con save or be deafened for 1 minute. Relentless drive. When the Superb Owlbear is reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, it regains 30 hit points. This symbolizes an unwillingness to be benched during the most important moments of the battle. Actions, of course, you have its beak and claw attack, and we have also its legendary superiority. If the Superb Owlbear is battling during a festival or high-stakes quote-unquote arena, as determined by the GM, it gains advantage on attack rolls and becomes immune to fear and charm effects as it feeds off the energy of the crowd, much like a gladiator might.
Yep.
So I think that maybe this creature would dominate between the battlefield and maybe don't forget the snacks on commercial breaks. But that segues into my ecology of the actual owlbear. Wasn't just pulling the owlbear out of my ass. So the ecology of the owlbear. First time, I'm going to try to do it quickly because I know we're well over here, but this is important. This is very important for D&D. Beautiful version of the owlbear in the Dungeons & Dragons movie a couple years ago. The owlbear first appears in the Greyhawk original Dungeons & Dragons, page 39, and they didn't call it owlbear. It wasn't one word. It was 2 words. It was owl space bear. And all of that was in there as far as the information was a little bit about its AC and its how much damage it did. And the description was creatures of horrid visage and disposition. Owlbears will attack whatever they see and fight to the death. They deliver a hug, just as a werebear, for example, as well as great damage from beak, tooth, and claw. A large male will stand 8 feet tall, weigh 1,500 pounds, and have claws over 2 inches long. Bodies are furry, tending towards feathers over the cranial region, and the skin is very thick. By the time we get to Monster Manual in 1979, page 77, they have a little more information. The horrible owlbear is probably the result of genetic experimentation by some insane wizard. These creatures inhabit the tangled forest regions of every temperate clime, as well as subterranean labyrinths. They are ravenous eaters, aggressive hunters, and evil-tempered at all times. They attack prey on sight and will fight to the death. They again mentioned the whole hugging them, and in fact, they actually give a little bit of rules for it. Basically, if you roll a natural 18 or higher, and you hit somebody, they automatically hug you. And basically will do 2d8 damage to every round so long as you're in the hug. And in first and second edition, that was a big deal because there weren't any rules to get out of that. I think Ben Bar's Lift Gates eventually comes out in AD&D. And they also give you a little bit of information about if you're encountering their lair, you might encounter eggs or their young. And their eggs are worth 2,000 silver pieces each, and their young are worth up to 5,000 on the open market, which is kind of cool.
Pricey.
AD&D second edition. Again, they go with the whole crossbred creation of a demented wizard. Given the lethality of his creation, is quite likely the wizard who created them is no longer alive. Again, has the whole thing where if you score 18 or higher, you start hugging them to death. But it specifically says you cannot use your claws anymore because you're busy hugging them, but you can beak them. About habitat, lives in mated pairs with a 2 square mile territory. Average of 20-year lifespan. Warm-blooded, but they do lay eggs. They prey on anything from rabbits, bears, trolls, snakes, and reptiles. Eggs, again, worth 2,000 silver, 5,000 for hatchling. February 1995, Dragon Magazine 214. They do a nice little story of a hunter trying to take out an owlbear. They do so, and as they're trying to skin it, its mate comes out and fucks them up pretty hard. And display a couple of other things of note. The hunter attracted the owlbear with honey. Basically, it's their only exception. They're completely carnivorous, except for they like honey. They're
Pooh Bears.
They're also not great climbers, and standard owlbear cannot fly. But they can detect invisible creatures due to their superior hearing, 270-degree ability to turn the head, and they also fight for 1d4 rounds after being dropped to 0 to -8 hit points. This one, the Dragon Magazine actually also includes the first instance of the Arctic owlbear, which again appears in 4th edition, and the winged owlbear, which appears in, I guess, D&D the movie. I think that one had wings. I'm pretty sure. The greater owlbear appears in 1997 in Dungeon Magazine 63, and it's basically just part of an adventure, and they just increase the stats and reduce the stacko. October 2000/July 2003, D&D 3.0 and 3.5. They changed the value of their eggs and young from silver pieces to gold pieces, because silver pieces, I think, in 1st and 2nd edition was kind of the standard currency.
Yeah.
Gold pieces, because we're rich fucking adventurers, is the standard. Also gives you 2,000 gold pieces to rear or train owlbears from a professional trainer. In 3rd edition, they had improved grab, so you basically auto-grab if they hit with their claws. In 2008, 4th edition Monster Manual, we have it as an 8th level brute, and it's the first time they add the screech to it, but they also kept the auto-grab on a hit, which is good. Strangely, they changed it to a Fey, and specifically said that they're a dangerous predator that hunted around the Feywild.
What?
They have a variation of the Arctic owlbear, and it's a Winterclaw owlbear, which just kind of does cold damage, cold damage and stuff. Back to 5th edition, it's back to a monstrosity, and its stats are kind of average. It has keen sight and smell, beak attack, claw attack, but it doesn't have a grapple or grab attack anymore, which kind of sucks, which is kind of one of the big things in the earlier editions. Fast forwarding to the 2024 Monster Manual that just came out, and the stat block's basically the same, except they also did the kind of the same thing they did with the dragons, where if this thing has multiple attacks, they just changed it into, it gets 2 rend attacks instead of a beak and a claw.
Ugh.
Which is kind of annoying. They also got rid of their keen senses, but increased their perception a little bit. The other thing, though, is that they did give you an improved owlbear, which is nice. They gave you a primeval owlbear, which is a huge owlbear with 126 hit points, 16 AC. It also gives it the screech that was introduced in 4th edition, which is nice, and it's actually pretty decent. It's con saving throw, 30-foot emanation, failure of 6d8 thunder damage, and the target has an incapacitated condition until the end of its next turn.
Oh,
that's crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of brutal.
That's great. This owlbear doesn't have the bear hug either, but they can knock people prone, which is nice. So, it also has magic resistance for some reason. It's a CR7.
They just wanted to make it hard as hell to kill.
Yeah. I mean, if it
Still
was
not
great,
as powerful as the Adventures League owlbear. That was just I think it was a brown bear. That was an owlbear, quote unquote. But they gave it Chardalian claws.
Funny.
And holy shit, did I kill so many players with that bear.
Oh my god.
It was smart. So, like, its whole strategy was to push people into this pit that had 1,000 crawling claws in it.
That's too many hands.
Yeah, I remember that.
The last thing I'll say about the owlbear in the new Monster Manual is that they also included a handy owlbear den features. So if you have a made it pair on a random encounter, like in Baldur's Gate 3, roll d4. It's a nest with a d6 owlbear eggs, passages through the earth, follow deeper underground, heaps of regurgitated pellets. Oh, by the way, yeah, so they regurgitate pellets of bones and fur and stuff, just like owls do, which was also featured originally in that Dragon magazine 25 years ago, which is hilarious. The other thing is that the primeval owlbear does have a slight fly speed of 5 feet, so I guess it could kind of like hop. I don't know. That's weird.
It could glide. It could glide, basically.
Glide, yeah, basically it can glide.
I mean, a fucking owlbear flying out of a tree at you is pretty horrific.
But the whole thing about owlbears not being good climbers from second edition is completely overridden here because both the regular owlbear and the primeval owlbear have a climb speed of 40. You better not climb a tree and hope you're going to survive.
Yeah. Bears fucking climb trees. They're
Yeah,
really good
they
at
sure
it.
do.
And as a throwback to fourth edition, the primeval owlbear does actually mention the Feywild. It says ancient forests and Feywild domains steeped in magic can give rise to particularly large and vicious owlbears. This primeval species specimens can fly, I believe, very poorly and emit thunderous screeches that rattle foe and even tear them asunder. I actually kind of like that they added a bit of a description beyond just, hey, it's a bear owl, it's an owl bear, because as my complaints have been many times in previous editions of, hey, you guys didn't give me a description here. I want to make my nature check and want you to give me more information.
Yeah, that Greyhawk Adventures with the first appearance, the description you read earlier was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it told you exactly what you need to know. And last thing I'll say on this is that I don't know which book it was I read through, but I think it was Art and Arcana, and it was about Gygax in his basement at the sand table, trying to find miniatures for creatures that he was coming up with, and he went to a dollar store at the time, and he found just some cheap Chinese knockoff supposedly zoo creatures or something, but one of them is what the image is of the original Dungeons and Dragons owlbear. It's just a bear with a frickin' beak, and he used it in an adventure, and it ended up in Greyhawk, and it's been in every edition ever since.
I want to know where that miniature is at more than anything.
I don't know, man. Ask Luke when we go to GaryCon.
Yeah, because he's probably seen it. That's fantastic.
But there's your owlbear.
I like the fact, too, that in the description for the 2025, it mentioned that it's basically propagated out throughout all wildernesses across the multiverse. That's a hell of an accomplishment for a species.
Yeah. Nice thing about it, too, I don't have to ask how it breeds or poops. It's a bear, so I kind of know how that works.
So what I just said about the whole Gygax finding this at a dollar store, it's literally under the owlbear entry and on the Wikipedia page with links to it. He actually used these originally for wargaming in chainmail in the earlier 1970s before D&D was even written. He said he was always on the lookout at dime stores for figurines that could be used in battle, no matter what they were. And he came across a small bag of plastic toys erroneously labeled prehistoric animals and made in Hong Kong. And also a set of monsters included from Japanese kaiju films, such as the Ultraman and Godzilla franchise, which probably gave rise to the Ogre Magi, which, by the way, 2 pages before the owlbear in the Greyhawk ODD book, there is a image of, quote, Japanese ogre. Clearly the artist drew this up and it's what is this thing? Is it Oni? I don't know what an Oni is. Japanese ogre. And just they've left it there. Because actually by the time you actually look through the book, it's actually called an Oni when it gives the description of the classic, Oni that we think of.
Mm-hmm.
So Ogre Magi. So
yeah, I love Onis. I've used them a lot.
But I just found it hilarious that in the Greyhawk book it's literally something just labeled Japanese ogre.
All right.
And that's all I got. That's what I got.
Nice.
Hell of a podcast.
Yeah.
Good job, guys. Good job. Hopefully everybody listens and enjoys. And I think we're out of here and no more Super Bowl talk. It's over. Thank goodness.
Yay.
Yep. Bye, Craig.
Bye, Craig.
Pretzels.